You have 48 hours. Pack your things, both of you. I want this apartment empty by Thursday evening.
Sir, you can't just change the locks. Where will we sleep?
That's not my problem anymore.
Sir, please, we can clean it right now, today.
It's too late for that.
Where is my money? What money? Don't play with me, Mercy. My envelope. It's gone. I don't know what you're talking about. Who else would take it? I have never, ever stolen from anyone in my life. How dare you accuse me of that? Then where is it? Tell me where it is. Maybe it's still buried under all the mess you keep blaming me for. Before we begin this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from today. We love reading your responses.
Now, let's dive into the story.
My name is Kemi, and before Mercy moved in, my life was quiet. Too quiet, maybe, but I liked it that way. I lived alone in a small off-campus apartment with one bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom with a door that never fully closed. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every cup was washed right after I used it. Every bill was paid before the due date. My books were stacked neatly on a wooden shelf my father made before he died. I was in my final year of college, and I had one goal burning inside me: to graduate with honors so I could take care of my widowed mother. My mother raised me alone after my father passed. She sold pepper and tomatoes at the market to send me to school. Every kobo she gave me felt like a piece of her sweat. So I studied hard, I cleaned hard, I lived carefully, like every mistake would cost her something. That was my life until the evening Mercy showed up at my door, dragging 2 large bags and crying. "Kemi, please," she said, her voice shaking. "I have nowhere to go." I opened the door slowly. "Mercy? What happened?" "My landlord sold the building. Everyone has to leave by this weekend. I've been begging people all day. Nobody has space." Tears rolled down her face. "Please, just for a few months. I'll pay my share, I promise." I hesitated. Mercy and I had been classmates since year 1. We weren't close, but we weren't strangers either. I knew she liked parties. I knew she liked attention, but I never imagined she was reckless with responsibility. Not yet. "Kemi, I like living alone," I said carefully. "I have a system. I need quiet to read." "I won't disturb you," she said quickly, wiping her face. "I'll be quiet, I'll clean, I'll cook sometimes. Kemi, please, final year is starting. I can't be sleeping on buses." Something in her voice cracked me open. I remembered how it felt when my father died and my mother had nowhere solid to stand either. I couldn't turn someone in that same fear away. "Okay," I said slowly, "but we split everything. Rent, light bill, water, and please respect the space." Her face lit up like I handed her the sun. Thank you, Kemi. I swear you won't regret it." I would regret it. I just didn't know it yet. The first 2 weeks were fine. Mercy kept her promise, mostly. She washed her plate after eating. She swept once. She even bought a bag of rice for the house. I began to relax. Maybe this would work after all. But slowly, the cracks began to show. One evening, I came back from the library to find her makeup scattered across the reading table where I usually studied. Empty bottles of body spray lay on the floor. Her clothes hung on every chair like decorations. "Mercy," I called, staring at the mess. "Can you please move your things? I need this table." She was lying on the bed, scrolling her phone. Sorry, I'll do it later." "Later when?" I asked, folding my arms. "I have an assignment due tomorrow." She sat up laughing lightly like I was overreacting. "Relax now, it's just clothes. See, I'll pack them now." She didn't. She fell asleep 10 minutes later, phone still in her hand, clothes still on the chair. I packed them myself that night, my jaw tight with quiet frustration. I told myself it was a small thing. Just one night, it wouldn't become a habit. But it did. Days turned into a pattern. Mercy would come home late from parties, dump her bag by the door, kick off her shoes wherever she stood, and fall straight into bed. Dirty plates piled beside the sink, A sweet, sour smell began creeping into the kitchen. "Mercy, this plate has been here since yesterday," I said one morning, holding it up like evidence in a courtroom. She groaned from under her blanket. "Ah, Kemi, it's too early for this. I'll wash it when I wake up." "You said that yesterday about a different plate." Relax now, it's not that deep." I stood there, gripping the plate, feeling something tighten in my chest. It wasn't just about the plate. It was about being the only one who seemed to care whether we lived like human beings or like we were hiding from ourselves. I didn't know yet that this small, stubborn refusal to clean, this "I'll do it later," would grow into something that swallowed my education, my savings, and almost my mother's life. If only I had known, I would have said no the night she knocked on my door. But I didn't know, not yet. That evening, as I scrubbed the plate myself, I told myself things would get better. I was wrong. Things were only getting started.
By the 4th week, our apartment had changed completely. It wasn't the home I once kept spotless. It had become something else. A place I sometimes hesitated to bring my key toward, afraid of what I'd find behind the door. Mercy's clothes were no longer confined to a chair. They spread across the floor like a carpet. Jeans, bras, sequined party tops, all tangled together. Plates with dried, crusted food sat stacked in the sink, some even on the floor beside her bed. A sour, heavy smell hung in the air, the kind that clings to your clothes and follows you outside. "Mercy, we need to talk," I said one Saturday morning, standing in the middle of the mess with my arms folded. She was applying lip gloss in front of a small mirror, getting ready for yet another party. "Talk about what?" she asked. "About this," I gestured around the room. "The house smells. There are ants in the kitchen now. I saw a cockroach run under your bed yesterday." She waved her hand like she was chasing away a fly. "It's just one cockroach, Kemi. Every house in this area has one or two. It's not the end of the world." "It's not one anymore," I said, my voice rising. "I killed 3 yesterday. 3, Mercy. And this smell, I can't even study properly because of it." She finally turned to look at me, irritation flashing across her face. "You're always complaining. I said I'll clean, didn't I? Just relax." "You've been saying that for a month." "Because I'm busy," she snapped. "Not everybody can be reading 24 hours like you. Some of us have a life too." Her words stung more than I expected. I opened my mouth to respond, but she had already grabbed her bag and walked out, leaving the door open behind her. I stood alone in the mess, my chest tight, with something between anger and helplessness. That night, I couldn't sleep. The smell had crept into the bedroom too. I lay awake listening to something scratching behind the wardrobe, and for the first time, fear joined my frustration. What if this became a health hazard? What if the landlord found out? He did find out, faster than I expected. 2 weeks later, there was a sharp knock at the door. I opened it to find our landlord, Mr. Bassi, standing there with his face folded into a deep frown, a handkerchief pressed to his nose. "Good afternoon, sir," I said, my heart already sinking. "2 of your neighbors have complained," he said flatly, stepping halfway into the doorway and recoiling immediately at the smell.
"They say there are rats coming from your apartment into the building. Rats, Kemi. Do you understand how serious this is?"
"Sir, I don't want excuses. I want this place cleaned properly. Within 1 week or there will be consequences." He turned and left without waiting for a response, his footsteps heavy with disgust. When Mercy came home that evening, I told her everything, word for word. "So?" she said, dropping her bag on the already cluttered floor. "He's just talking. Landlords always threaten. Nothing will happen." "Mercy, do you understand how serious this is? He mentioned rats. Rats! Do you know what that means? He could evict us." "Relax," she said again, that same maddening word. "I'll clean this weekend, I promise." The weekend came. She went to a friend's birthday party instead and returned past midnight, tipsy and giggling, stepping over the very mess she had promised to fix. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching her fumble with her shoes, and something inside me went cold and quiet. I realized for the first time
that her promises meant nothing. They were just words she used to make the moment easier without any intention of following through. Mercy, I said softly, if this apartment gets shut down, we lose everything. Do you understand that? She looked up at me, swaying slightly, and for a brief second, something like guilt crossed her face, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. You worry too much, Kemi, she mumbled, collapsing onto the bed. It will be fine. It wasn't fine. 3 days later, the landlord returned. This time, he wasn't holding a handkerchief. He was holding a set of new locks. I didn't know it then, but the countdown to losing everything had already begun.
I will never forget the sound of that day. The heavy footsteps in the hallway, the metallic clink of tools, and Mr. Bassey's voice, cold and final, cutting through the air like a blade. Both of you need to hear this clearly, he said, standing in our doorway with 2 workmen behind him, one holding a mop and bucket, the other holding a toolbox. I gave you a warning, I gave you time. Instead of change, I got more complaints. Instead of respect, I got rats chewing through my building. Sir, please, I began, my voice trembling. I've been trying to... Interrupted, raising his hand. I'm not interested in who did what. You both signed this lease together. You are both responsible together. He turned to the locksmith. Change it. My stomach dropped. Sir, you can't just change the locks. Where will we sleep? You have 48 hours, he said, his voice unmoving like stone. Pack your things, both of you. I want this apartment empty by Thursday evening. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Final year? Exams in a few weeks? And now, no home! Beside me, Mercy had gone completely silent, her earlier confidence gone, replaced by wide, frightened eyes. Sir, please, we can clean it right now, today. It's too late for that, Mr. Bassey said, already turning to leave. 48 hours. The door shut behind him with a finality that echoed in my chest. I turned to Mercy slowly. My hands were shaking, but my voice came out low and sharp. This is what you did. This is what your laziness did. Me, she said, her voice cracking. You could have cleaned it too, Kemi. Why is it only my fault? Because it was your mess, I shouted, all the frustration of the past month finally breaking free. Your clothes, your dishes, your parties. I begged you, Mercy. I begged you every single week. You think I wanted this? She shot back, tears filling her eyes. You think I planned to lose my home too? You didn't plan it, but you caused it. And now I'm losing everything because of you. My house, my peace, and maybe even my exams. She stared at me, her mouth open like she wanted to argue further, but no words came. For the first time since she moved in, Mercy looked truly afraid, not of the landlord, but of the mirror I had just held up to her. We packed in heavy, bitter silence for the next 2 days. Every item I folded felt like a piece of my stability being dismantled. My books, my reading lamp, my father's old shelf which I had to leave behind because there was no space to carry it. Each box felt heavier than it should have, weighted down by anger and heartbreak. Mercy tried to speak to me a few times. Kemi, I'm sorry, she said quietly on the second night, folding her clothes into a large duffel bag. I really am. I didn't look up from my box. Sorry doesn't undo this, Mercy. Sorry doesn't give me back my exam registration money, my peace, or the mother I'm trying to take care of. She flinched at my words but said no more. By Thursday evening, we stood outside the apartment with our bags scattered around us like the remains of a life that no longer existed. Neighbors peeked from their windows, whispering. I felt humiliated, exposed, and furious all at once. Where will you go? Mercy asked quietly, refusing to meet my eyes. I don't know, I said honestly, but wherever it is, it won't be with you. She nodded slowly, blinking back tears, and picked up her bags. We went in separate directions without another word. I found a temporary space at a classmate's cousin's place. A tiny corner of a room, nothing close to comfortable, but enough to keep my things safe for a few nights. As I unpacked my bag that first night, exhausted and hollow, I reached instinctively for the small brown envelope I always kept at the bottom of my bag, the envelope holding my tuition savings and the money for my mother's surgery. My fingers touched nothing but fabric. I froze. I dug deeper, my heart racing, pulling out clothes, books, papers, nothing. The envelope was gone. My whole body went cold, and in that moment, only one name flashed through my mind: Mercy. I called Mercy immediately, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone twice before she picked up. Kemi? Her voice was groggy, distant. Where is my money? I demanded, skipping every greeting. There was a pause. What money? Don't play with me, Mercy, I shouted, pacing the small borrowed room. My envelope, the one with my tuition savings and my mother's surgery money, it's gone. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, her voice sharpening with confusion and alarm. I never touched your envelope, Kemi. It was in my bag before we started packing. Now it's gone. Who else would take it? I don't know, but it wasn't me, her voice cracked with frustration. Why do you always assume the worst about me? Because you've given me every reason to, I snapped. You destroyed our home. You got us evicted. Now my money disappears in the middle of that chaos, and you expect me to believe it's a coincidence? I didn't steal from you, she screamed, her voice breaking now, raw with hurt. I know I messed up the apartment. I know that's on me, but I have never, ever stolen from anyone in my life. How dare you accuse me of that? Then where is it, Mercy? Tell me where it is. I don't know, she cried. Maybe it fell out during the packing. Maybe it's still somewhere in that apartment, buried under all the mess you keep blaming me for. Convenient, I said bitterly. Blame the mess. Blame anything but yourself. You know what, Kemi? Her voice turned cold, wounded. I have spent this entire month apologizing to you. I have taken every insult, every accusation, because I know I was wrong about the cleaning. But I will not stand here and let you call me a thief. I am not a thief. Prove it, I whispered, now tears streaming down my face, because right now I have no money for exam registration. My mother's surgery is in jeopardy, and you're the only person who was in that apartment with me. There was a long, painful silence on the line. I can't prove a negative, Kemi, she finally said, her voice quiet and broken. I can only tell you the truth. I didn't take your money. I hung up without responding, sinking onto the thin mattress in my corner of a room, sobbing into my hands. The weight of everything crashed over me at once. The eviction, the friendship in ruins, and now possibly my entire academic future. The following days were the darkest I had experienced since my father's death. I went to the bursary office, hoping for an extension, but the answer was firm. No payment, no registration. I called my mother, forcing cheerfulness into my voice so she wouldn't worry, but I could barely hold myself together. Kemi, you sound tired, she said gently over the phone. Is everything okay, my dear? I'm fine, Mama, I lied, biting back tears. Just stress from exams. I couldn't tell her. I couldn't tell her that the money meant for her surgery, the surgery she desperately needed for her worsening knee, was gone. I couldn't add that weight to a woman who had already carried so much for me. Meanwhile, word of the eviction and our shattered friendship spread quickly among our classmates. Some sided with me, others whispered that maybe I was too hard on Mercy. Eviction wasn't entirely her fault. I stopped listening to any of it. I had bigger battles, survival, exams, and a mother's whose health hung in the balance. I saw Mercy once, briefly, across the school hallway about a week later. She looked different, thinner, tired, dark circles under her eyes. For a moment, our eyes met. I saw something in her expression, not defiance, but exhaustion and sorrow. I looked away first and kept walking. I didn't know it then, but Mercy's life outside our broken friendship had also begun collapsing, quietly, painfully, and in ways I couldn't yet see. Neither of us knew that the real truth about the missing envelope was still buried, quite literally, waiting to be uncovered. The weeks that followed were the hardest of my entire life. I moved from my classmate's cousin's floor to a cheaper, cramped room I shared with 3 other girls I barely knew, paying with money I borrowed from a distant aunt who made it clear this was a one-time favor. I skipped meals to save money. I studied by candlelight when the shared room's electricity was cut for non-payment. Every single day, the fear of losing my final year, of failing my mother sat like a stone in my chest. I hadn't spoken to Mercy in almost 3 weeks. Our group chats, once filled with our laughter and complaints about assignments, had gone silent between us. Mutual friends occasionally passed messages, but I ignored most of them. I was too broken, too afraid to let her back into my life. What I didn't know was that Mercy's world was also falling apart, piece by piece. I heard the details much later, some from her own mouth, some from mutual friends who witnessed it firsthand. After the eviction, Mercy had gone straight to her party friends, expecting the same warmth and welcome she had always given them. Please, just for a few nights, she had begged one of her closest friends, Chiamaka, standing outside her gate with her bags. Chiamaka had hesitated, glancing back toward her apartment. Mercy, my roommate won't like it. We don't really have space. Please, Mercy said again, her voice desperate. I'm sorry, Chiamaka said, avoiding her eyes. Maybe try someone else. She tried someone else, and another person, and another. Each time, the answer was some version of the same excuse. No space, no permission, bad timing. The same friends who once cheered loudest at her parties, who once called her the life of the group, suddenly had no room for her when she needed them most. She spent nights on strangers' couches, once in a church hall, and even one terrifying night in a 24-hour restaurant, pretending to wait for a friend who never came, just to have somewhere warm to sit until morning. Nobody actually cared about me, she told a friend later, crying. They cared about the parties, about having fun with me. Nobody wanted the real me, the tired, homeless me. Slowly, painfully, something shifted inside her. She began remembering all the times Kemi had begged her to clean, to help, to care for their shared space. Not out of pettiness, but out of respect for the life they were both trying to build. She remembered every "I'll do it later" she carelessly tossed out, never once considering the weight those words carried. She started crying at random moments, while washing a borrowed plate at a friend's house, while walking past their old streets, while looking at old pictures of the two of them from freshman year, back when things were simpler and friendlier. I ruined everything, she admitted quietly to Chiamaka one evening, weeks later, after being finally allowed to stay a few nights. I ruined everything, not just the apartment, Kemi's future, maybe her mother's life, all because I was too lazy to wash a plate, too selfish to think about anyone but myself. Meanwhile, I continued my own quiet battle. I appealed to my faculty for a short extension on registration, citing a family emergency, too ashamed to reveal the real story. They granted me 2 extra weeks, a small, fragile lifeline. I sold my only gold necklace, a gift from my late father, and combined it with the little my aunt could spare, scraping together just enough to register, though nowhere near enough for my mother's surgery. Every night, I stared at the ceiling of that crowded room, wondering how everything had unraveled so quickly, how one careless roommate had cost me so much. I didn't know that at that very moment, a group of workers with hammers and paint buckets were standing in our old apartment, tearing down a broken wardrobe that Mercy had never bothered to fix, the same wardrobe that had been leaning dangerously to one side for months. Beneath it, hidden under a mountain of forgotten, dirty clothes, something small and brown was about to be found. The truth was closer than either of us imagined. I was in the middle of a mock exam revision session. when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer it, exhausted and drained from weeks of stress, but something told me to pick up. "Hello, is this Kemi?" a rough, older voice asked. "Yes, who is speaking?" "This is Mr. Bassi, your former landlord." My chest tightened instantly. "Good afternoon, sir. Is there a problem?" "No, no problem," he said, and I could hear something unusual in his tone, softer than the cold finality I remembered. "Actually, I need you to come to the apartment. Something was found here that belongs to you." My heart skipped. "Found? Sir, what was found?" "Just come, please. Bring your friend too, Mercy. She should see this as well." I arrived at the old apartment with my heart hammering wildly, uncertain what to expect. Mercy was already standing outside when I got there, looking thinner and more tired than I had ever seen her. Our eyes met briefly, awkward and heavy with unspoken pain, before we both looked away. Mr. Bassi led us inside. The apartment had been gutted for renovation. Walls stripped, furniture removed, the old broken wardrobe finally torn out and lying in pieces near the doorway. One of the workers, an older man with dust on his hands, held up a small, death-stained brown envelope. "We found this under the wardrobe," Mr. Bassi said, taking it from the worker and holding it out to me. It looks like it had been there for weeks, buried under clothes and trash. The wardrobe must have collapsed slightly onto it, wedging it into the floorboard crack. My hands trembled as I took the envelope. I opened it carefully, and there it was. My tuition savings, my mother's surgery money, slightly damp and dusty, but intact. I gasped, tears immediately filling my eyes. It's all here." Beside me, Mercy made a small, choked sound. I turned to see her covering her mouth with both hands, tears streaming freely down her face. "Kemi," she said, her voice breaking completely, "I swear, I never took it." I stood frozen, staring at the envelope, then at her, the weight of the past month crashing over me all at once. The accusations, the screaming, the broken friendship, all built on a misunderstanding born from neglect, not theft. "It fell," I whispered, almost to myself. "It just fell and got buried under everything." "Under my mess," Mercy said quietly, finishing my sentence, her voice thick with shame. "I did this, Kemi, not by stealing it, but by being so careless that I buried it without even knowing. If I had kept the house clean, if I hadn't ignored every warning, this never would have happened. None of this. The eviction, the accusations, any of it." I didn't respond immediately. My anger, which had burned so fiercely for weeks, suddenly felt heavy and exhausting to hold on to. "I'm sorry," Mercy continued, stepping closer, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry for every single 'I'll do it later.' I'm sorry for the parties I chose over you. I'm sorry I let it get this bad. You lost your home, almost lost your education, almost lost the money for your mother's life because I couldn't wash a plate on time. I will never forgive myself for that." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone completely different from the carefree, laughing girl who had begged to move in months ago. This Mercy looked broken, humbled, and painfully sincere. "I said terrible things to you. I called you a thief. I blamed you for everything without proof. You had every reason to," she said, wiping her face. "You gave me every reason to doubt me." Mr. Bassi, who was quietly watching this exchange, cleared his throat. "I see something real happening here. Genuine remorse. That's rare these days." We both turned to him, uncertain what he meant. "I have a proposition for both of you," he continued. "Instead of blacklisting you as tenants, which, believe me, I was fully prepared to do, I'm offering you one more chance, but it comes with a condition." Neither of us expected what he would say next. "Come and see this," Mercy said, standing back with paint on her hands and a satisfied smile stretching across her tired face. I stepped back from the wall we had just finished repainting, taking in the fresh, clean color, replacing the stained, damaged wall that used to hold months of neglect. It felt symbolic somehow, covering the mess with something new, something we had built with our own hands. Weeks earlier, Mr. Bassi's condition was simple but firm. If we wanted a second chance, if we wanted our tenant records cleared instead of blacklisted, we would work together every weekend without pay to help clean, repair, and repaint the very apartment we had nearly destroyed. At first, it felt like punishment. Scrubbing tile grouts, hauling broken furniture, painting walls until our arms ached. But somewhere in those long Saturday afternoons, something else began happening too. "Pass me that brush," Mercy said one afternoon, and I handed it over without hesitation, the way we used to before everything fell apart. "You missed a spot," I teased, pointing to a patch of unpainted wall. She laughed, a real light laugh I hadn't heard in months. "Look at you, supervising me like a landlord now." "Someone has to," I said, smiling despite myself. Slowly, carefully, we began talking again, not just about paint colors and cleaning schedules, but about everything that had happened. Mercy told me about the nights on strangers' couches, the friends who abandoned her the moment she needed them, the painful realization that her laziness hadn't just been a personal flaw, but something that hurt the people who actually cared about her. "I used to think cleaning was such a small thing," she admitted one evening as we scrubbed the kitchen sink together. "Something that could always wait. I never thought I'll do it later could cost someone's education, their mother's surgery, almost their whole future." "And I used to think I had to fix everything myself," I said quietly, surprising myself with the honesty. "Clean up after you, cover for you, avoid confrontation because it felt easier than fighting. But that wasn't fair to me either. I should have set boundaries from the very first week instead of quietly suffering and exploding later." She nodded slowly. We were both wrong in different ways. Yeah, we were. True to her word, Mercy had also sold her expensive phone, several designer outfits, and other valuable belongings, using the money to help cover my immediate living expenses while my recovered savings were being processed through the bank. It wasn't something I asked for. She insisted, showing up one evening with a stack of cash and a determined, guilty expression. "I can't undo what happened," she had said, pressing the money into my hands despite my protest, "but I can help make it a little easier now." Over the following weeks, as we worked side by side, restoring the old apartment, something between us slowly rebuilt too. Not the same friendship as before, but something stronger, tested by fire and honesty. Exams arrived faster than either of us expected. We studied together some nights, quizzing each other, sharing notes, supporting one another through the stress in a way we never had before. When results were released, we both stood in front of the notice board, holding hands tightly, eyes shut, terrified to look. "I passed," Mercy whispered first, disbelief coloring her voice. "Kemi, I passed." I opened my eyes, scanning frantically for my own name, and found it with the honors distinction I had worked hard for. "I did it too," I breathed, tears spilling instantly. "Mercy, I actually did it." We hugged tightly, both crying, both laughing at the same time, standing in the middle of a crowded hallway of celebrating students. On graduation day, my mother sat in the audience, healthier now after her successful surgery, clapping proudly as I walked across the stage. Beside her sat Mercy's family too, cheering loudly when Mercy's name was called moments after mine. Afterwards, standing outside in our graduation gowns, Mercy turned to me with a soft, genuine smile. "Thank you," she said simply, "for not giving up on me, even when you gave me every reason to." "Thank you," I replied, "for finally proving that people really can change if they choose to." We didn't leave college with just degrees. We left with a friendship rebuilt on something far stronger than convenience or shared rent: accountability, respect, and the rare gift of a genuine second chance. Because sometimes the biggest consequences in life don't come from one terrible mistake. They come from the small bad habits we ignore every single day. The "I'll clean it later," the "it's not that deep," the little responsibilities we push aside until they pile up into something we can no longer control. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real emotional stories like this one. Have you ever had a roommate like Mercy or a friend like Kemi who stuck by you through it all? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. See you in the next story.